who don't know us, we're Security First Asset Management. I'm President and CEO Daniel Neesmith. This is Shayna, an advisor, and Alicia, and you probably saw Elaine and Ashley when you guys came in. So we do a fun event every month and a financial event every month. All of these are listed on our website, sfamga.com. For those of you who aren't clients, I've put some brochures over here and some cards. You're always welcome to come back. If there's anything we can help you with, we are full service financial planners. We're fiduciaries, fee-based planning, and we help over 500 households in 24 states take care of their assets. So anything you need help with, we're glad to help you. But tonight it's all about fun.
Oh, I was just curious, how many people are just visiting guests tonight?
I know there's a few.
Just like
I think there's about 4. You
Well,
guys
that's
are
right.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
I said, how many people are just visiting and not already participating with the group?
Oh, he's already got.
We got about 4 or 5.
Both quarters.
Yeah, I got his 50 cents. So, but anyway, Mark, he always does a good job, very entertaining.
Yes.
He probably needs no introduction, but he's obviously published books. He's an artist, apparently knows how to cook, or can, or something. That's what he's here for tonight. And so he's been on television and radio. Y'all help me welcome Mark Ballard.
Okay. So tonight we're celebrating the peach, since we live in the peach state. And when they call me, and these are, so she brought me these. So these are, the first ones that come out are kind of small and all. I always try to wait until the Albertas and what they call freestone, where you can take the whole thing off and have the little red edge. Because when you're making pies and stuff like that, they're just prettier. Now, when I was growing up, my grandmother did a lot of canning, and she would take something like this and peel them and then pickle them. Have you ever done that, where you just take the whole thing up and try not to scrape your teeth against the seed because it wouldn't release from the seed? So I always like a clean break, and when I do, when I put mine up, like the ones I'm using in these pies tonight, I go out there and get like 3 or 4 boxes and just do like a peeling day and all that. That peach juice is so sticky, so you have to just put down basically one of those fake shower curtains or some kind of plastic something over the whole thing. And I just get into a thing, I'll just do them and then I have a big silver bowl. Not silver, what's that? Stainless steel. It's really big, like for, restaurants and all, until I fill it up, and then I add sugar and, fruit fresh or something like that. And I always add a lot. A lot of people don't put enough of that fruit fresh because you want them to be, it really doesn't say on the thing. I just had to look it up one time. But see, these are from last June, and you see they've got their beautiful color. So, and upon going through one of our freezers to find these, I found some that were done a year or so later, before them, and I could tell they were already brown in the thing that hadn't come out of the freezer. So, make sure you do use a lot of that. Now, so you see how this, I was telling them, how this juice, once you add that sugar and that fruit fresh or whatever, there's several options besides fruit fresh, then they immediately start making a little syrup. And so then I get those bags that are like the freezer Ziploc bags, the big ones that have a gusset. If you're by yourself, it's a must because somebody can't hold, you'll have peach all over the place. So you sit it down, and then I have a ladle that's about that big that's like Brunswick stew or soup or something, that I use that as a way to measure how many I put into. I usually do 3 into one of my bags, and then I mark the year on them, and then I probably put up 30 bags last year. So when she mentioned talking about canning, I don't, back in the day, we had to shell peas until my fingers hurt, and mother put up butter beans, and the ones that were, the beans that were, like the peas, like say black, what do you call those? Yeah. I would always try to just pretend, I was so sick of shelling them, but I would just pretend like I was just gonna crack them into those little, and my whole thing would be like 3 peas, and the rest of them those that I just broke up. And mother was like, the only ones you do like that are the ones that aren't filled out, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to start. But she would blanch them and put out a towel. I can smell that smell now. And then we had them in the freezer, and now they call it an air fryer or whatever. We had a pure out pressure cooker that could blow your whole house up if you wanted to. I mean, we were doing a chicken one day and literally exploded with chicken on our ceiling in the kitchen. But you could put a piece of fat back or something in there, and that whole, just didn't have to thaw the piece out, just dump them in there, that frozen thing. And I think 5 minutes later, and then we tried to cool it down quicker than it went, just fixing to be exploded up. You know. And so now I must confess, how many of y'all can like that? You do? You would do, but I mean, do y'all, any of y'all just do that every summer? But I mean now.
I do Ziplocs.
Ziploc. I've done that with peas and stuff. Anyhow, two things I said I would never do when I got older was crack and shell pecan. I love pecans, and they're like gold. When people give me a gift at Christmas and they give me pecans, it's like giving me a piece of gold, because we had to, your hands would just be bleeding, and then if you left a piece of that red in there, that must have come from Mark's section. He didn't do it. So, because it's so bitter, they'll burn a brownie or anything. And so, I never could get my crack. And then when they do it at those places where they go ahead and crack them for you, they're kind of damaged, and you still end up having to basically do it anyhow and try to get out of their way. So when I see a pristine bag of like halves, I'm thinking, Merry Christmas. People don't know what to give me. I'm thinking, just give me some pecans. Okay, so let me tell you about the peach pie. This is my very first cookbook. It was published in 1999. I was just doing the math this afternoon, and it's almost a quarter of a century ago. Time just flies by. And I was on TV at the time, and every time I'd cook something, they were, why don't you do a cookbook? And I'm thinking, why would I do a cookbook? And so the audience wouldn't leave me alone. They wrote in, please do a cookbook. And, it had 10 printings. It sold out immediately, and then it sold out again. And so I'm thinking, how many more y'all want, So I did the artwork, because I was trained as an artist. They call my section the artist. But, and this is one of y'all's members, Renee Mobley. She was supposed to be here tonight, but she got sick. But she made this for me and gave it to me for Christmas. It says artist, author, chef, possum wrangler, which I'm going to cover in a minute, and teacher. And so in this, basically what I did was got my mother and grandmother's little tin, those little recipe cards that went to that little tin thing, little box, and literally just put them into a cookbook form, because it was what we were raised on and what we grew up doing. And what was so interesting about it is a lot of them, like mother would write things down, like so you could tell like she was at the bank and she tried something and she had her bank statement, like her little deposit slip, and she just really wanted the bank, wrote it down. It was like on the back of the deposit slip. My granny had little pieces of newspaper, which this was in, I think it was in the late 60s or early 70s when this recipe we're going to do tonight came out. And Granny had clipped it out of the News Telegram way before I was writing for it. Who would have even dreamed it? I was just a child. And then put the date and the year, So we grew up with this pie, but I have since made changes. It's not, this book is out of published, but this is my newest book, but it's not in it. So I wanted y'all to have the recipes, so I wanted y'all to have a handout. But I'm going to tell y'all what, there are a lot of good things in this, though. If you want, need something like that, that's a great book. So it's called Peach Custard Pie. And it's on the top of your page. I think I thought I had more. Hang on just a minute. And here's the deal about it. Back in the day, and I for tonight I had to make so many. I just used what I call a stove-all. Y'all know what that means?
Yeah.
You got from scratch and stove-all. I use stove-all pie shells because I only have like 3 or 4 of those. Mine are not clear glass, they're like green. You see them like a TJ Maxx out there. Anytime I cook this, I try to cook it in glass because it cooks so much quicker and so much more evenly than when you do it in here. So I had to cook these almost like twice as long because I was just getting the tin foil. And I also had to put them on the bottom rack. Hey darling, how are you? Sonny, put your little name in there.
Put my name in there?
Yeah, they're gonna have a drawing.
I have a drawing.
So, now I'm gonna tell you all that straight up. If you are gonna use just one of these, then make sure it's gonna take you a lot longer to cook it. Leave it at 370, 350, but just watch it, cause you want that custard to totally set. And if it's jiggling and all when you go, you're just gonna need to put it back in there. So I baked probably an hour and 10 minutes. But now if I'd have done them in my green pie pan, they would have been done in 35 to 40 minutes. It's amazing because that glass, and the other thing is a lot of times when you're cooking anything in glass, they tell you to, like if it's got a cook time to do less, or watch it because it cooks brownies, everything faster. And
Okay, you gotta start all over now.
there's that color, that's that color yellow you're talking about. That's the color shade you're talking, yellow, right? Yeah, we're talking about clothes, we've covered everything. So anyhow, I grew up on these, and this is a deep dish, and let me tell you this, I've used a lot of store-bought crust when I've had to. Normally at home I would make my crust if I was doing this in one of those green, because it matches, it's this color, like a Majolica green, and put my crust in there. But in a pinch, I've had everything from Marie calendars that are in the frozen section to, what's that place that started in Austin that's everywhere, really nice upscale grocery store? Now, what's the one over in Harris Teeter, but not they have it too. They have a good one. That's not it. But the one over there, Fresh Market. What's the other one that's headquartered in Texas?
Whole Foods?
Whole Foods. They had a good one. They have a good one frozen. Just the pie crust we're talking about, shell. But at Christmas time, I was in Blake wanted a coconut, or we call it a French coconut pie, and so he's my son. So I went to the grocery store with everybody else the day before Christmas trying to find one, and all I could find was a Kroger brand one. I was like, and it's to me one of the better ones.
I like them.
I mean, it's got, you can even see the butter like where they cut it in when it's falling out. Well, here it is. I mean,
that's
it is.
Kroger?
Yeah, this is a Kroger one. So we're all gonna get a taste of this. So I want to cover that. So now y'all know that if you're gonna, I would do a deep dish because the next thing I do is I like more custard. so I get a deep dish and then do like a recipe and a half of what y'all have. You can, and you might put less peaches or whatever, but I like the peaches to be, cover the whole bottom of this, which you'll see in a minute. But at the same time, even if I have some of that left over, it takes more, I think, to make a good pie to have more than just that.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And here's what you do if there's some left. I got a lot of practice doing these things. You take like a little ramekin and just butter it, and I just poured it in there and just stuck it, so being that tall, stuck it in there while these were baking, and it just baked like a custard. It rose up, and then it was like just a, like an egg custard, but it was flavored with almond flavor. So that's, or, they tell us not to eat any raw eggs. I will. It's good to me, just like that from the. Anyways, I'm 62 years old and I haven't died yet, so I'm thinking, we grew up licking the pot. Mother, can you please save me the beater? I want that beater. It's got more hanging to it. Okay, so what we're gonna do first is make our custard part. And this is, so in here, what I'm doing now, I've already done 1.5. I brought an extra egg. It calls for 2. I put 3 in it without half it again. But I figured if I busted an egg, we had to have it. So this is sugar and plain flour. I use cake flour because I think it makes a more creamy custard, or at least white lily. Because if you just use some of that heavy flour, it's gonna be heavy in your pie. And so what I do, this is my go-to recipe for summer because, as long as you allow time for it to cook. Especially when peaches are in, these are frozen and you really can't taste the difference, but when they're in, you can even do this in a tart pan. If you've got one of those scalloped glass tart pan, it's beautiful to lay those peaches out in the free stone ones that come out of the, where you see that pretty red edge. When I say red edge, I'm talking about like that. I love it when you can see that. You can spiral it around and, not put as much custard. It's a beautiful dessert. So it's quick, it's summery, it's, perfect. So what I like about it is that you don't have to get the mixer going on that. I just use a whisk. I'm just gonna whisk together this, I use this is Swan Down. Do y'all use Swan Down? I use that for all of my cakes.
Yes.
I love White Lily for my biscuits and stuff like that, but Swan Down is, I didn't realize they'd been, saw the box the other day, it's like 1934 or something. They've been around a long time. It's the one that's got the red kind of box, but it is super fine.
Yes.
And it makes the pound cake and anything like that great. If I'm making biscuits, I don't use anything else but White Lily.
White Lily, of course.
Yeah, of course. And you know, when I have spoken in other parts of the country, a lot of them don't have it. And you know, when you look over the thing of flour and it looks like sand and it's heavy and you go to measure it out and it looks kind of gray, I'm thinking that couldn't be good in the cake, you know. You want something white and something soft and light, so that's what I put in this. Then we're going to add 3 eggs. It calls for 2, but y'all know it's gonna be on the test. Y'all know why we're doing that. So, let me ask you this while I'm doing these eggs. Do y'all eat, like, would y'all do the scrape the pan thing? Or no, are y'all scared of that? I mean, tell me, do you not get a little,
Scrape the pan?
yeah, like if you're finished with your butter, like if you're finished and you got a little bit, you taste it.
Yeah.
I mean, I do get a fresh spoon, but well, a finger's fine too. My grandmother always said, "What won't kill will fatten." So, yeah, it always works for the fatten part. We never have died. But I did read something the other day about they're even worried about putting it in. You know, they do that cookie dough and ice cream. They were like having all kinds of stuff with that. You know, if you have fresh eggs, and you know, eggs last a lot longer in the refrigerator than they say. I mean, you can easily go a couple of weeks or so, as long as if an egg's bad, you'll know it right when you put it in there. So there's no problem about having to decide. So I put she warmed the butter, we melted the butter. Now this is a whole stick of butter. I'm just gonna not quit. I probably put 3/4 of a stick because it called for half a stick. But if 3/4 is good, I may put the whole thing, who knows. But anyhow, I do go ahead and get these eggs if this is cooled down to room temperature, but you do need to be careful if you melt. You don't want to start with a stick of butter, it'll cut it in or anything. It needs to be liquefied. That's really the only liquid we're using with this besides the eggs. So if it's steaming hot I don't know if y'all have ever done this, but you need to temper it or it'll just scramble your eggs. You'll have to add scrambled eggs to your peach pie and serve it at breakfast. So I just use this whisk this in. That's a hard word to say when you're talking quickly. Okay, so you do want to get it mixed up though, and we're kind of like when you're doing a pound cake, you'll see it get a little bit lighter in color. You don't have to do it much, but see how that's changing. You do want to make sure all that's whipped up, and then we're going to add the 3/4 / maybe whole stick. Let's just do it. I never have been one of those chemist cooks. I call them chemist cooks because they're not going to let 1 grain of sugar over that 1 cup get in there. And if I'm at the end of the sugar thing and I'm thinking there's 2 tablespoons more, just dump it in there. I had a friend that, to me, the best thing that has, in our generation, the best thing they've done is make Crisco in those little sticks.
Yes.
How many times did we have to measure in those cups, and then you would put it in the dishwasher and you still see a film of it when it gets the next time you use it. And you know, you wouldn't push it down and this and that. And so when I do that, I've never bought a 10 cents. I buy the butter flavored and the other. If you're making biscuits, the butter flavored is good. Of course, I put another slab of butter on top of each one before I put it in the oven too, but that butter does help it out. So anyhow, I had an elderly lady that was a really good fan, and we ended up becoming friends. And she ended up, I'll tell y'all, this is a little bit of gossip if y'all want to hear. Carolyn Creighton, back when I did all my work with Cherry Blossom, and we're talking 100 years ago now. You see how pretty and creamy that is. That's because that sugar was fine and that flour was light, and the butter was perfect. So anyhow, the whole stick of it. Carolyn, every time we would have a get together for Cherry Blossom, she would offer to bring a pound cake. Who's personal friends with Carolyn? I mean, I am, and I've told her in front of her. I just don't want y'all to say I was talking bad about her, because I'm not. But we knew she wasn't baking no pound cake every week when she came to some of our stuff. I would get one at my front door every birthday, and it was always in a box and had pound on the outside of the box, completely wrapped in saran. And I'm thinking, so I asked her one day, I was like, and this is being recorded. I asked her one day, I was like, Carolyn, when do you, with your schedule, have time to do all that? And she said, oh, I just set aside a day, like a Saturday, you just make pound. I'm thinking, well, you must have a big old freezer. What I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So, I meet this older lady. We become friends. She has me come over to her house and do things with her. I had lost my mother and my grandmother. She kind of became that person for me. She's been dead 30 years now, so that changed how long ago it was. And she told me that she had a little room set up in her house where she made cakes to sell. And these days you can't mention that because those people that have storefronts will turn you in and, everything else. But back in the day, it was just a little cottage industry. So, I was out there watching her one day, and she took Crisco, still measuring that can, because I know it was more, cheaper to do it that way than cut it. And I was like, Mildred, why have you not just gotten some of those sticks? Oh, that's too much money, blah, blah, blah. And so she would take a knife and get that so slick on the top, it's like a skating ring. And I'm thinking, well, you need to put more on the top because you're going to leave a tablespoon in there no matter what you use to get it out. And she never would, and I'm thinking, so that's what I call a Kim's cook. She went by that recipe. I look at the recipe as a guide. And as long as you're not doing it for somebody like I was doing all these for y'all, I wouldn't want to practice them, but if you're just doing it for at home, even when we were growing up, if something failed, if our fudge didn't harden up, we just got the ice cream out. We never wasted sugar, I'm sure too. Okay, now, is anybody allergic to pure almond extract? Because, I have to tell people, I know people are nuts, but they consider that a nut, but who likes almond and who doesn't? It's one of my favorite things. Oh, we all go to the right place if we got some almond tonight. Some people, it's like cilantro. People either like it or hate it. It tastes like soap to some people, but I love cilantro. Some people think this tastes like licorice, and I hate licorice. Y'all ever even think that? No.
What?
It calls for, I thought, I don't know what imitation almond y'all are using, but this is the best. You can order from Amazon. I get my vanilla, but make sure it's, real. The imitation is never good. But I was looking at this the other day, and they have a little thing you can send it back. Here's the trial mark, because I guess people were getting it. You really could, unless they got wind of it, you could just never buy vanilla again. Because look, if it's up to here, you could use almost half the bottle, and they go, whoops, I don't like it. I think it tastes like licorice. So I think the recipe calls for a teaspoon. The original recipe called for a quarter teaspoon. I thought, you can't even taste that. I wouldn't even put a quarter. This is a big tablespoon, but I'm doing 1.5, so I'm going to put, get ready, 2 probably, if you're counting. But it complements peaches so well. Even if I did peach ice cream, I would do that almond. It's a perfect combination. Okay, so I can smell it right now. Can y'all smell it right now?
It smells delicious.
It's just like, they need to do a candle like that. Peach pie with almond. Why don't we work on that for next year? Okay, so I'm just throwing that in. Okay, so I was telling the people that got here a little earlier, so we will repeat this. When I put these up frozen last summer, I put fruit fresh and sugar, and it makes that little liquid, which is not going to matter with this as long as you don't have all of it. So I put this in a strainer before I came over to let most of it go out, and it was like probably, half a drinking cup. Well, Deborah, my wife, is out there playing with a game or something, watching something. Anything to not hear me, she's having a break for me today. She loves Prosecco. And so every time I see it on sale, I get her some, and she's like, she puts it in there. And lately, with the summer, it's so light and everything, we have, everything with me is a bumblebee. Somebody gave us a bee wine stopper that I opened the refrigerator up 3 nights ago, and it had blown that bee out of space. In fact, the bee came out when I opened the door. I was like, what was that? And the bottle had turned sideways, and it had dripped on every shelf of the. And I was like, Deborah, you're going to put your TV on pause and come back here because I'm not cleaning that up. I don't drink it, and it's not mine to clean up. So she said the other day, and I usually drink it because it's like peach nectar, basically. mean, it's kinda like, what they put in those milkshakes when they do peach milkshake.
Right.
So what I did was Deborah came by and she said, I think I'm gonna put some Prosecco in there with that. Well, now that's her new favorite thing, so I had to save that for her. But I'm going to, like I told you, if we're doing this, if it was fresh, and you just had a peach that was freestone, you could, I noticed that crust is cracked, so whoever gets this may have to dig, but it won't be too hard. I tried to stop it up. That sugar will get in there, just eat it yourself, and don't even try to cut it and you'll be fine. Have y'all ever just, I can't be trusted with sugar, I'll just be honest. My name is Mark Ballard, I'm a sugar addict. In fact, I mean, those people that just won't eat birthday cake, I mean, Deborah's birthday was in April and I make her, I don't know if it's in this one or not, but it's called a coconut cherry cake, and it's came from her aunt down in Saperton where they used just pure out farm eggs and everything. I saw it at a funeral, we went to, and they went to the house afterwards, and I saw this beautiful cake because it's like pink because it's made with maraschino cherries and coconut. And it was just fascinating. It was one of Deborah's aunts, and I got the recipe. So every birthday, Deborah requests, that recipe. And so it's a pretty difficult cake to make, and you have to keep it kind of cold. And it's got pure out Crisco in the icing, but just fabulous. And it has a touch of all. It kind of gives a little kick. Okay, this is so unprofessional, but that's how I got my career on TV, was being unprofessional. Who wants this? They're perfectly good peaches. Nobody's had that spoon.
It'll be a fight. I'm not gonna.
Well, there's your it's just pretend like that's a nice napkin.
I have a question, Mark.
Okey dokey.
Okay, the crust, now usually when I put something in the oven, something must be wrong with my oven. It's never brown at the bottom.
Okay, that's because you're doing one of those tinfoil things. It's like
Yes,
that's the problem. You need to drop it down lower
Lower, okay.
to the bottom, which is what I do with these.
Okay, lower.
But isn't that good? You want some Prosecco?
Well, we would. And is certain type of peach you use?
These are the ones that they're not Albertas because they got so many new ones now, but they come out in the end of June. Almost the last ones to come. They're big, and you can cut them and the seed comes right out, and then you slice them, they're really pretty. But anyhow, another thing to tell you is you might want to consider getting you one of those glass pie pans that are glass.
Yes.
And you can get, in a pinch, some of that. Pillsbury does one that's rolled up in the refrigerated section.
Oh, yeah, those are good.
They are good. You can have that and, put it in there and make your little edge, and it's gonna cook, anything you're cooking is gonna cook better in that glass. All right, so I had to cook these like an hour and 10 minutes each because it would normally take me in my glass thing probably 35 or 40 minutes. Was that worth it? The rest of them were like, why didn't I stay out this morning?
I was giving somebody else a chance.
Well,
They
no,
didn't take it, so.
that's right, John for be left behind, right? Okay, so we got this really simple ingredients. Let's go over it again. Sugar, flour, butter, eggs, and almond flavoring. So that's what I'm telling you, if you gotta make a quick dessert, this is the way to go. So you put the peaches in first, and then you pour this on top of it. And it's not gonna take all of it like I told you, so. I guess we can we can get one of those little plastic cups you gave me, and they can take this home and cook it like I did one of those little ramekins, and they can have it. Even though the peaches aren't in there, it's still good by itself. Ooh, okay, I'm not gonna put quite as much, so we will give you the extra of this, whoever wins this, because in case you have to slam on brakes on the way home, you will, it won't go over. So I just usually jiggle it a little bit and then put it directly into a preheated 350-degree oven. And like I said, I moved my rack down with it being that tinfoil. I wouldn't do that if it was in a glass or it burned the bottom. But because of that, I moved it down a thing, and because there's nothing worse than having that not brown on the bottom.
Right.
Because it doesn't serve well and it has a gummy comes out. I'm hoping to God these are done, now that I've said that. Don't tell me if they're gummy. Now, like I tell you, whoever gets this edge is pretty too. You know how sometimes those other ones that Pillsbury makes or whatever, they just kind of break off, but these, every one of them stand up just like that. I mean, it's really a good crust. It's a good store-bought crust. Okay, so I made pies so that we can all have a piece. how about that? Then we're going to draw, and somebody's gonna be able to take this one home. I hope that little tiny crack that I repaired is not going to affect you getting out of the thing, but if it does, just get you a spoon and eat it cobbler style. Now the only reason I put peaches up in the summer is because, well, first of all, do y'all know where the triangle is on Rivoli, where the people, all the bikers leave from? It's way out in Rivoli, almost to Pea Ridge Road. Okay, I ride my bike from there all the way to Dickey Peach Farm.
Oh my God.
It's a 65-mile trip by the time you get back. So people, when I get back, I'll, have boxes on the front porch, because I'll tell them I want the boxes, and then they know I'm doing stuff like this and mentioning their name, and I'll just pay them out there, and then they get back to my house the boxes of peaches before I do on the bike. So somebody wrote and said, how do you get them home with you on a bike? And I thought I would just pretend like something's wrong with me, and a lady will pick me up, and I'll just put them in her car. So anyhow, obviously we can't cook this, but somebody's gonna take it. We're gonna give y'all a box to put it in so that you can sit in your floorboard. But let me just tell you, Deborah, I used to be making takes, which I'm fixing to show y'all a little bit of. And this lady in Milledgeville, one time we shut the whole bank down. We were doing it at a bank because I told everybody to bring their hair dryer because we were trying to speed up the drying process of the paint. And everybody turned on at one. I didn't realize how much wattage. Deborah told me she worked at Tri-County, like I told you. It uses almost as much water as like a refrigerator. So we just blew we blew them offline. People in the drive-thru, pneumatic tubes stuck in the thing. And they were like, Mr. Ballard, the bank is down. I was like, whoop, turn those dryers off. I told them not to do it. So anyhow, one lady, people started, anytime I do anything, people are, remind me to get back to the cherry cake, I forgot that. People are, always want to bring something sweet when we're working, which is fine with me. So this lady had made a blueberry peach cobbler, and it was in a big old, nice thing. And she had said it, she took it out right before she came to go to the event, but she was going to bring some ice cream. And she set it in her floorboard and had to just slam on brakes.
Oh no.
And when we got there, we came out there, and that's almost as bad as spilling a Chick-fil-A thing of sweet tea in your car. You may as well take it to a detailing place. You'll never get that sticky out. But anyhow, so be careful taking that home. To finish up about the cake, there was Deborah's birthday cake, and so there's about this much of it left. And the second night, we retired that day and we got it out. And I made sure that it was exactly the same, or mine was a little bit bigger. My mother, when we were growing up, whoever halved, the other one got a pick. And the other way it was, so I didn't give her a chance. I was like, here's your cake, and I ate part of mine in the kitchen. But anyhow, when I sat down, it was just so delicious. And I thought, Deborah, I don't know if I would want to live if I couldn't eat sweets. And I think it's the truth. And you see these people, I wouldn't let a piece of sugar touch my mouth. I'm like, well, you are having a terrible life. You do not know what you're missing for sure. I'm going to hand you this so that we don't get any paint and this other one in case they need to be cutting it. Isn't that pretty, just like that? And then you can come back and get this. And I don't know if you, look at her. She's going to be brave. And this. I'm trying to clean this away. I got to tell you about my possum. I want y'all to. I've got to tell you this too. I hadn't said it on Facebook, and I just want y'all to remember me in prayer. I had a kidney stone. I've told you about my kidney stone stories. I've had them my whole life. My daddy had them. I remember when my sister and I were 6 and 7 and all, we would see Daddy crying and crawling on the floor, and we didn't know what was wrong with him. When I had my first one, I found out. How many people have had kidney stone? Well, let me tell you. When you've ever had, the first time I had one, I thought, oh my goodness, my appendix is ruptured, I'm dying. The first thing we did growing up was you would wet you a rag, and you took some Tylenol. I mean, really, you go, Mommy, I'm sick. Let me go wet you a rag. And, So I woke up in the middle of the night with that first one I had, thinking something's bad wrong. And so I wet me a rag, went and got me a Tylenol, and an hour later I'm thinking it's getting worse. So I went, Deborah, who sleeps now, I don't sleep hardly at all. She's in another world and could tell you every color and every image from her dream. And I mean, the next day I had to sit there and think, wow, I was just thinking it's 4 o'clock, and if I don't go to sleep, I'm going to be up in 5 minutes. Anyhow, she said that I tapped her and I was like crawled in there. Back to the bed. tapped her and I said, wake up. Well, what I said, I just want to tell you I've had a good life. But I am dying, And, I'm such a nice, nasty person that I hate going to the emergency room unless I have to. So I finally decided I'm going to have to go to the emergency room. That's you get to that point because then you start going up and so bad. And so Deborah said, well, let me get dressed. I thought, well, get ready faster. So I got that wet rag. I'm just like wringing it and just trying to get it. We get in the car. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I open this car. It's like a cooler time of year. I open that window. I got me and that rag are halfway out the window. And that car there hit me. And I go, Deborah said, I wish touched me. I don't even want anybody touching me when I'm in that kind of pain. Deborah's touching my leg. I wish there was something I could do. There is. Put your foot down on that accelerator. It's 3 o'clock in the morning and run these red lights. So somebody that doesn't even want anything on their hands, I was crawling on that nasty emergency room. Put that in your pipe and smoke it for a minute. Anyhow, they figured out that, and then over the years I've had them, and I didn't realize until lately, the last couple, they want to see a stone, and a CAT scan because a lot of people are claiming to have them to get drugs. Now, I don't know why I wasn't creative enough to think of that, but I didn't. But they had a hospital doctor 2 times back. I was having to be admitted in the hospital with it. And I went through the whole story of telling them what it felt like, blah, blah, blah. And they'd done a CT scan, and sometimes they hide. But if you've had one, I woke up that morning, the one I just had, I was at the Panola Farms event on Sunday when it hit me. But I woke up that morning thinking, if I didn't know better, and I remember my daddy saying this, I would think a kidney stone is playing with me. Because, we might hurt for a minute, and then you think it's your back, and then you think, no, it's not. But when it hits, it's like a situation. He waited till I finished that doctor and said, I don't believe you. And I thought, but excuse me, I didn't understand what you said. And so I thought, I got a little verse in this. I just want to get out of the hospital because I'm not going to sit here and be in pain and somebody tell me that I don't believe you. I didn't know people did that for pain medicine, So Deborah and I are both self-employed, so we have terrible insurance, because we have to pay all these big. So if I'm going to the emergency room, I want to make sure it's a kidney stone, or we start to pay for the whole thing. I got my bill for this kidney stone episode, which was a small one. I went in there for probably 4 or 5 hours. $15,000 before they adjusted it down to $6,000, and I'm thinking I could have gone to Hawaii and lived a month somewhere. Anyhow, that's not the point. But anyhow, while I'm in there, and this gentleman has had them, you're in so much riveting pain, I couldn't even lay on that gurney. I was not just trying to, you're trying to get some kind of, and I've talked to women that have, had birthed a child, and they say it's worse. So, what can we say? Because they think, oh, y'all just never had pain. We've had pain. So anyhow, the doctor that just happened to be at the thing, I go get the CT scan, praying that they see it, because I don't want them to kick me out of the hospital. And he comes back in and said, "You've got a kidney stone. And by the way, do you smoke?" And I'm like this now, sweating on the floor. I said, "No, why?" And he said, "There's a mass on your right lung at the bottom." And I'm like, "Why are you telling me that when I'm having a kidney stone? I can only take one thing at a time." So I have a friend that's a radiologist, and I got Deborah to text him because I was shaking so bad. As you know, I couldn't have texted anybody. And they won't give you pain medicine at first until they realize if they're going to have to take you to surgery.
Right.
It's because, they can't, if I was going to have to go straight to surgery, I couldn't have pain. You're just in there praying for every second's like an eternity. And so he came out there and he said, "I don't think it's anything," but he had me an appointment with a pulmonologist the next morning. It's good to know people when you are in that situation. So they did another CAT scan. That's how they find a lot of stuff. Other stuff is when you're looking for something. That's one reason I'm like, don't be looking for anything. That's the reason when you go to the dentist, you're fine. You're thinking about, "Gee, I can't wait to have my little cleaning." And after they knock on every one of them with that thing, you're leaving thinking my teeth is hurting, and the next day you've got a problem.
Thank you.
Is that not the truth?
Yes.
Okay, so anyhow, I went in to get a cleaning and ended up having to have an implant. I thought, what happened? So I'm gonna leave this out. We're gonna save this for whoever wins. Put it into one of these and put it in her box or his box. So I go there. They don't think it's cancer either, but I love it when they go, "It doesn't look like cancer to us." But I've said that before and I was wrong. Well, then why are you saying it to me now? You know, I would almost sure it's not, but we need to do another CT scan. Well, they did another one, and it's like about that big. That's why they're kind of scared. It's a big scan. And you know, when I do a ton of exercise, I was telling you about, I do spin classes every day, ride 60 miles. So I was thinking if it was something wrong, I wouldn't have been able to breathe to do all that work. I get my heart rate up to as high as I can get it. So they said then that, I said, what's the next step? Because they still couldn't touch it after the second PET scan. And they said, the next step is for us to do either PET scan or do a needle biopsy. Which I had a lung that collapsed when I was younger, so I'm like, what would you do? And they said, well, I would get the PET scan first, and then we'll see if we need that last resort. And I'm thinking, well, if that's the final answer, why don't we just skip the $6,000 PET scan? And if that's the only, because even then, they're not going to know for sure until they get some fluid from it, you know. So anyhow, no, I don't want to put you through that, Mark, if you don't have to, blah, blah, blah. So anyhow, I did that. It lit up a tiny bit, but they weren't concerned about it. And so he wants me to wait like 3 months and have another CT scan. So if y'all follow me on Facebook, I've been painting every single day because I can't. My mind has to be occupied. But I really have had so many. I really, in my mind, have never thought it was anything bad because I think I would have felt something if it was that. It looks like a little turtle, basically. Wouldn't you know, I would have a little form and run. But it just makes you realize that you can just be having a kidney stone, and then the next thing the last time it happened, I had a kidney stone. That's when they found out I had the blood clotting issue. So I went from being stoned to clotted. Then I went in to have a cancer test for that too and didn't have it. So that's the only thing that doctor I called had read that PET scan, which was back in 2014. And the thing wasn't there then. Because they were thinking it was like maybe scar tissue or something, but they just, I don't think it is, but I've been wrong. So, well, thanks for sharing. Where do I pay? Okay. I need to quit making pies and doing this kind of stuff and go be a doctor. Because the minute you walk in that office, you're thinking, you were only there 5 seconds, and how much is that a word? Those of you that didn't hear earlier, I made this topiary out and Doris, you may have done one of those classes that we did with Peaches.
I have the peaches.
Back in the day, we used to do classes. It was a 2-part class because you had a good time to do this is when it's hot weather because you can just sit it outside and it dries quickly. But you know me, I did peaches at first simply because I couldn't find a pretty peach to show on TV back in the day. So I thought, why can't I just take? So I got like a styrofoam ball and pressed out the little thing and made the little tip at the bottom and punched that in. And then I thought, what can I do? So I tore tissue paper up, and I decided we would go ahead and make it an orangey color since that's what we're going to be dealing with. And then dipped it in glue, and it's a mess that never Doris.
Yeah.
You have glue all over you, everybody else.
But I'm still using.
Do you? I do too. And so, in fact, I had to go dig this up. It was in the basement. They were saying, what about that big one you did? And I thought, what are you talking about? So, anyhow, then it has to dry, and then you have to turn it over because that glue will settle down. And then once all that happens, like now is a good time because when these 100-degree 90 days, that'll whip out in a minute. Once it's like that, it's really durable, and then you begin the painting process, which I was just going to show y'all. I actually used the seed to do the halves so that I could make the impression so that when it got to that point, I could do the red, like the peaches I was describing to y'all earlier. But what you do, in case, it's fine if you have grandchildren or somebody at home. If you want to entertain them and have a mess in your house, then this is the project for you. I could not show y'all though because it was so peach related. So these are just those paints that you get for like $1 a thing. They're not, nice paint, but I knew that we couldn't just do it with a brush because, it wouldn't have that effect of it being kind of fuzzy and all. So I'm just gonna put a little touch of all these colors down here and just show y'all real quickly. So I used a sponge. And I was really amazed at how realistic they turned out, right, Doris? I made wreaths out of them. I decorated a Christmas tree for some lady one time out of them. It's the kind of thing you have fun on the first one. The second one's still fun. The third one you're okay, but you don't want to see the fourth one. Kind of like I felt about the pies after the sixth one. I was thinking, okay, if I had these in my green pan, I started to go buy some more green pans because I thought this is ridiculous. But I was said all that to say when I first came out with the cookbook, everybody just went by that recipe and I wasn't there to explain to them what I did to y'all. I never could get mine done in the middle. My email was jammed, everything was jammed. And I was like, well, you must not have put yours in, well, it didn't say put them in a glass pan. I thought, well, that's when I decided you had to be very specific. Okay, so let's start on like one of these these are already in, but that's how it looked. And I started off with like a yellow. So I used one of these sponges that, ooh, almost missed it. Anyhow, they're like that kind of sponge. One that you can easily grip and you use a dabbing motion. So, they have all kinds of colors. So the reason I was glad when she said peaches, I feel like I'm a peach expert because I've been around them so many times. Y'all remember I painted all that at Lane. Mm-hmm. And that was so funny. They said, Mark, let's get you in here in January when nobody's out here and you can just do that whole mural. And I thought, well, sure. The day I did it, they were doing a strawberry pesticide seminar that they were going to do at the barn or someplace out there, and it was so cold that they had to bring them in to guess where I was painting. Mm-hmm. So the whole time I'm painting, I'm hearing about, thinking, do I ever want to eat another strawberry? Because you should have heard all those pesticide things. I was like, okay, blah, blah, blah. So see, that gets us down, that starts off our blending process where we get all that. This is already dry, but see how that dabbing motion keeps it kind of light? Mm-hmm. Then, and I sometimes don't rinse this out because it helps with the blending process. As you can see from these real peaches right here, they have so many different colors. So this one is, like if we wanted some of that coral color, we could put a little bit deeper yellow with some red or something. And then you can go right back on there, see how that's doing? And start doing that blush so that you can, and work your way up to that. Now, I did find out when I was doing all those paintings of peaches that, those peach people, they want those peaches. We think, oh my goodness, they're, like that. They love it when when they get this dark color. They think it's, that's like a perfect peach. And I'm thinking, I always look for the ones that just have a pretty. But they want it dark. So, when I was painting out there, you got to get it darker. You got to get it redder. You got to do this. You got to do that. So, I just kept building up, and then we get to that color. And then at the end, when I finished all that, I went back and waited till all that to dry, and then took some white that, just got most of it off and mixed in, and then you can go back over it. Just really, this is too much weight. Get it off the thing. Just really delicate, and it almost has that feel, and then you can brush some of it off of it being fuzzy is the word I'm looking for. I had too much on there to begin with, but see how pretty that is. So when I did these, I was like, if I can do that, why don't me? Nothing ever is never enough with me. I'm like, if you can do peaches, why don't you do a cantaloupe? And I'm like, what? So I had to get a really big ball to do the cantaloupe. And then I decided on plums and kumquats, and some there's plum peaches that are in quarters, some they're half, lemon. But this is like almost 25 years old. I found it in the basement. And I did it kind of hollow so that, I got it on an urn, but you could put it on anything. And I've used it a couple of times. You know what it reminds me of is, back in the day, you hardly go to a wedding now when they do it, but back in the day, Mother used to help at our church with weddings. Y'all remember those beautiful, elaborate fruit rings, ice rings with a punch bowl, those big silver punch bowls? And you have to start on that like 2 weeks before that wedding, because you put some in there, then you have to spray it, and then add others. But it has that kind of just clumped up look, thing. But now, if it's outside in Middle Georgia, 2 weeks of work would be over in 5 minutes, and that fruit would just be blopping down into the punch. All right, so let me see if I've talked about everything about peaches, everything about my kidney stone. Anyhow, the kidney stone I passed the day after I went to the pulmonologist, but they sent me home to pass it. But as you know, when you're in such pain, you can't wait for them to give that to you in your vein. So I understand why if you were a drug addict you wanted, but I was in so much pain, they finally said, you're not gonna have to go to the thing, and they gave it to me. It's like a heat starts at the top of your head, goes down, and It's not that you don't still feel it, you just don't care anymore. Mother said it was like scratching your head, but you're doing it out here. But Deborah has no tolerance for it. She's like, well, you know, like she thought I could just, what's wrong? I think I'm having kitties. Are you sure? And all that. But so anyhow, that's when he came in. I thought, how dare him tell me that? They should have sat me in some room like they do when somebody dies in your family. I needed some time to get myself composed, but not during a kidney stone for you to tell me that. But because he didn't know what it was, he was just a doctor there. But apparently it jumped out at him, and he thought he'd give it to me when I was bent over crying. I want to pass a couple of these around so y'all can just get the feel of how it starts. And this is an average actually. That's shows you how it starts with the coloration. This one's got messed up, but I love doing the insides. And what you can do then on the insides, the ones that show the inside, you can actually brush on a shellac or a glaze, so that's shiny versus the matte finish of the other one. I don't know if y'all been seeing my Xenia paintings that I've been doing, and I always call them my kidney stone paintings. I guess these are my mass and my lung paintings. I've been doing a lot of beads and stuff, so I accidentally got some acrylic paint that was considered matte. You know how sometimes that lipstick, they say it's just totally matte, and Deborah put it on, I'm like, you know, it looks weird because it's not got a shine to it, doesn't have any. Well, I picked up by accident one of the colors that was matte, a new paint I hadn't used. And when I painted one of the backgrounds for one of the Xenia paintings I was doing, I looked and it was matte as you've ever seen. And I thought, it was pretty, but I thought I'm going to put a varnish on it anyhow, so it's going to change that matte. But I didn't know did y'all know they had totally matte, just like lipstick, totally matte? So any of the inside fruit that would be liquid in 25 years, I'll probably need to repaint some of these. You can make it shiny so it looks, then you hear that comparison between the skin of the peach and the peach.
Looks like you just cut it.
Just cut it with juicy peach, right? And I actually put these new roses in because the other ones had died 25 years ago. But my grandmother used to put her wreath out whether it was dead or not. Every Christmas she would take this pitiful wreath down. Even as a child, I thought, that's a pitiful wreath. And she would go to her Christmas decoration was she had a silver tree that she couldn't light because it would catch on fire. Now they're a fortune.
Yes.
If you get one of the real ones now, it's like $500 or $600, and it was probably $10.99 at Kmart. So you had that little wheel that turned. It was like blue, green, because you couldn't light it. And we could always tell when we had our Christmas, me and my sister in front of the tree. We would, you have your face would be either green or red. You knew which way the wheel was. Even those wheels are like $200 if you can find an old one. I got into, I think I told y'all that I got into those of you that follow. If you don't follow me on Facebook, you need to, because I'm constantly posting something. I use my page just to be positive to inspire and to be creative. And I share a lot of my collections. Like I got into old Santas. I started with those little mugs. They were from the 60s because I was born in 1960. And my daddy, it's really one of the only things I remember specifically that my daddy gave me. And it had a little eye that winked. So every time I would see him at an antique thing, I would get him. I now have I never know if one is good, 25 has got to be better. Now people started giving them to me and they'd find them at things, but I have probably 50 or 60 of those. But the most important ones were my dad gave me. But then I started getting into some of these older Santas on eBay and stuff, and instead of get addicted to pain medicine, I get addicted to that kind of stuff. And I had worked on this Santa with this lady for a while, and then I hit it really quick and got it, and so it had a little thing to email her to tell her, I just want to say thank you. I'm so thrilled to have my new Santa, new/old Santa. And she wrote back and said, that's not your Santa. And I'm like, is this not did I hit the wrong thing? You need to go check it. It's clearly says so. I did a screenshot. Don't you like screenshot? Sent it to her. And she said, and she was really mean. And I said, told me it was my fault and everything. And I was like, and she said, I will try to send it out, but I have to ask my husband. And I said, well, ask him because, I wanted it. It was like she had me over a barrel. And so she was just rude as you could be. So after she got the thing we went through, I said, because my wife goes all over the country teaching customer service skills. she uses me for an example of the wrong way to do it. And instead of saying, you look beautiful in those colors, I said, you said drab, I didn't use that word, but I was thinking, you know, she really looks much better with her coloring when she has on something like your yellow sweater, because I think she had on something like that last night. And then she said she loves that color, but you feel kind of the same way, but you still look beautiful. But you see, Deborah would say, you know, the right way to say it. But, what was I saying?
The Santa.
What?
The Santa.
Oh, so she was just the rudest person you'd ever see. I went down color lane for a minute. I'm not even having a kidney stone or on drugs. I went down another lane. The older I get, the harder it is for me to stay on the lane, actually. But, so anyhow, when you got the transaction, she finally agreed I'd won it and da-da-da. I just wrote her back and I said, I just want to tell you that your customer service was terrible. Because, you know, when I have an Etsy store myself, and I always want 5 stars, so we bend over backwards. You know, the only real job I ever had was when I was 17 at Sears and Roebuck in the camera department, can you imagine? And calculators. And back then, when the calculators first came out, one the size of our phone was like $79. Y'all remember? Yeah. Now they're like $2.50 or something. Back in the day, if you got a big one, it was $400 or $500 when they first introduced them, kind of like phones are now. And so I was selling cameras. I only did that job for like a year, and then I went to art school, and then just decided I was going to be an artist, I guess. But even then, Sears's rule was the customer is always right. I don't care if they took that dress home and wore it, and you can see stains down the front of it, and they brought it back the next day. You say, here's your receipt, because they don't want you to leave with a bad taste in your mouth. And so I was so upset at that lady. I said, and I just want to let you know I have an Etsy store, and I just don't appreciate being treated like that when I did what I was supposed to and paid for the thing and everything. And I said, I will be giving you a bad review. And that made her livid. So she said, well, I will be refunding your money for the Santa. And I thought, well, fine. I don't even want it if it's being near you anyhow. So what it was is she didn't refund it for a long time. I had to stay on her. I mean, it was just a terrible experience. But the silver lining is I found another one from another lady that was in better condition, the same exact Santa, and less money. So I thought I'd just send a picture to that and send it to that lady. Does anybody have any questions about pictures?
Tell about the possum.
I'll end with the possum. Okay, now that y'all know me, all these other things, I guess it's been maybe, like Deborah said, I didn't have a kidney stone. She always brushes everything off. I was out one night, what was horrible was we were keeping our son's dog, which is, they don't have children, so it's our grand dog, and if something happened to that dog while under our care, we would have to go into the witness protection program. I'm not kidding. I mean, I'd be over living in China with black hair with the lady that brought me on the bus. So, I've seen several movies recently about what depths they go to for that, how they use that new identity. And if that chain gets broken, how they can go. I mean, it's amazing, all those underworking things that are going on with people that are having to be. And me, I'm just getting in vans. Get my bike, go in the back. Okay, I'm sitting on this fabric. So anyhow, I was sitting out way out in the sunroom, and Deborah's like at the back of the house, and she has the one dog because they don't like each other. Bandit thinks he rules our house, so I have Bandit. He's little, and I'm sitting in a recliner, and Bandit's sitting right here by me, and Deborah's got Bodie back there. So I'm watching a movie, and I hear, we have hardwood floors throughout the whole house. I hear scratch, like a little something walking. So I'm thinking it's Bandit, like the sound Bandit would make. He's a little 8-pound chihuahua walking out there to see where I was. And then I thought, I was like in this movie, and I paused it. I was like, and then I looked down and saw Bandit was sitting beside me. And I'm like, well, that's weird. Well, Deborah said all these knee surgeries, so she has to have a cane. So when I'm waiting for it like that, I will just text her. Because I didn't want to move because I'm thinking there's something in this house. Our house is over 100 years old, so nothing's tight, And so I go, Deborah, come to the sunroom quickly and quietly. And Deborah writes back being funny, pick one. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm sitting there. I said, something else is out here because I heard it in the dining room, but nothing's in our house. Remember, no kidney stone? So I thought, okay, I'm just crazy. You know how you just have to convince yourself, I didn't hear that, thinking I know I did. Well, she's brushing her teeth, and all of a sudden I'm in another room in the back, and she says, I just saw, out of the corner of my eye, I just saw something, walk by. And I thought, then I'm thinking she's playing with me. Because, I told you I'm obsessive, compulsive, and a checker. Like I had to go by the oven 10 times, off. These pies have put me back 10 years between that and that lung issue. Because I'm thinking, I didn't leave that house until I checked like 5 times. Are y'all any checkers in here? That's a sad story. You know that stove is off, but you're going to check it again. And if you use your iron, you better put it in your car and take it with you. Because it's going to burn your house down. How many times we got on a vacation trip, got to like 10 miles out of town, did you turn the iron off?
Yeah.
And then somebody said, well, they make those that cut off automatically. You don't have to worry about that, Mark. Check that off your list. And then the next thing I read about is one that did, and then they burned the house down. So anyhow, I think Deborah's playing with me about that. Sometimes she'll go turn the oven on or something just to make me have to go back to ground zero. So when she said that about seeing something, I'm thinking, yeah, right, funny, Deborah. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight anyhow. But she wasn't kidding. She did. So we get the dogs put up in one room. They're sitting on the other, because Bandit would walk past any kind of critter like, why are you in my house? But Bodie would have probably attacked him. I mean, just see me telling Blake, oh, by the way, Bodie just attacked something. We didn't know what it was at that point. But we have a mud room where you come in the back of the house, and it can be closed off with 2 doors. And where she saw it, it ran under a bench we have up there where we put our shoes and stuff under it. And she saw it dart under there, and I thought, well, what is it? So I got a flashlight and got on my knees like under that bench and saw a possum staring at me, and I'm like, oh my God, don't move and don't open the doors. So I'm thinking, if you open the doors, it's going to be loose, and that we will never find. So she says, oh, but what? The next thing I know, it gets right past her, and she thinks she hurts her toenail doing something. Because I yelled about it, I said, it is in the house now, and she said, I think I saw it go into Blake's old room. So we opened the door, the dogs are sitting on the end of that bed, and they guys were like, we're not getting down, what's going on? I just think, Blake, your dog just ate a possum in our living room. I'm in there searching for the possum, and where she thinks she saw it took a right. And there's some pillows that, when we not put back on the bed after changing, like decorative pillows that I had stacked in a little place right beside there. I looked over there, and there was that possum playing possum. You've always heard that? It was in a little tight thing, just sitting there like he can't see me. And I'm just thrilled to know that it was there, And I said, Deborah, what are we going to do now? You don't call a Ritter at 1 o'clock in the morning. So I was like, that wasn't the right word, but y'all know what I mean. Ritter, is that the word? So anyhow, that's what they loved about me on TV, is I talked straight to the people when I had an issue. That's what they said made my show what it was. I would go, she says that. We're not gonna do it. She says I'm crazy and didn't see it, but I did. So the people in the audience think, I agree, she shouldn't have said that to him. So anyhow, I found after all these years of not being known, I'm still doing it. Did you see me? So she said, well, you're going to have to grab it. I'm like, I'm not touching it. Well, you got me confused with somebody that's going to touch it. And she said, so you're going to have to. So I was sitting there thinking, I'm not going to be able to close my eyes knowing there's a loose playing possum in our house. So I don't have a choice. So I went down to the basement and got the thickest, my daddy's pair of electrical gloves. Because I'm thinking, if I'm going to have to touch it, I'm not touching it. It's not going to bite me. It's not going to do it. Come to find out, they are one of the best things for eating ticks and fleas.
Yes.
I mean, they are wonderful because I hate fleas and ticks. So I go out there, and I had read an article that week, something I read that was inspirational, and it said, if you were scared of doing anything, whether that's flying on a plane or, whatever it is, and you have tried to convince yourself that, you don't need to be scared, you need to go ahead and do it, that's great. But if you never can get to that point where you're not scared to do it, then you have to just do it scared. I just read that like the day before. So that's exactly the mantra that went through my head when I was sitting there right at that playing possum. And I thought, I'm gonna get it like a cat does behind, when their little baby's right behind the neck. I just took a deep breath and it just went, just hissing and all that. And I was like, and so Deborah had a y'all think I made this up, but I couldn't. I'm creative, but not that creative. Those little boxes that are plastic to store things in, it's about shoebox size. Deborah had retrieved one of those and had the top, and all she had to do was sit on the edge of the bed, and I was going to bring that screaming thing into there, and she was going to put the top on. She almost let it out again, and I was like, if I've already touched that and you let it out, I'm never going to speak to you again. So we finally get it on there, but it's not a tight, you couldn't burp it. Like, do y'all remember that? You could burp, you did that top up. You tell that to people that don't know what you're talking about. You had to do that little top up and burp it and then put it back down. It was not a tight fit, and I didn't want to kill it or anything, but I didn't want it in my house. So we had to get some of those industrial rubber bands, 2 or 3, and hold it in place. I'm thinking it's going to get out. Rats and things like that can just decompress and go through the tiniest little crack.
Yeah.
This thing had come up through one of the gas lines in one of the fireplaces. And got on that dining room table that I had decorated for whatever season it was, and I heard clicking on glass. I thought, what is in here? But Deborah said it was nothing. So anyhow, I take it out, it's still on our property, but out by the road, because we were going to a family reunion the next morning in Dublin. And I thought, I'm not going to let it live here, because it'll be back in my house before I get back. I'm going to take it out there to the Dublin and let them, he has to squeeze in. But here's my casserole, I left you a possum out in the car. Isn't it good to laugh?
Yes.
I'll tell you, I feel so good after these things because I'm thinking there is nothing better than gathering a group of people together and laughing and talking about similar things, because we don't. There's so much negativity and so much going on. This is like heaven to me right here. So anyhow, the next morning I could not wait to go. I cracked the back door to see where I'd see it, but apparently the sprinkler had come on and I couldn't see it in there, so I tippy-paused out there. And it was gone, but the rubber bands were still there, and I felt like I was at the tomb. He has ribbon. And I was like, Deborah, how in the world did he get his friend to hold up one corner that wouldn't burp and then go down? Anyhow, we didn't get to take him to Dublin, and we owned the 2 properties, houses behind us. One's a duplex, which I have filled up with all my studios at the top, and I have all our decorative stuff. People go, where do you put all your Christmas? And I'm going, we had to get another place behind us, because we were having to rent a space, and now I can just walk back there. But with it came another house that faces Belvedere, because it was zoned together, so we used to rent that house out, but Deborah said I expand to any area that I have, so I made that into my florist. Because, it was so hard when I was doing reads and everything to try to look through boxes and find things. Now I can just lay them around the whole living room in that house, and I can just go find it. It makes my life easier. So she wants to go over there, but I don't let her go. I'm like, you're not going over there. That's my space, because I do step over some things, and we need to tidy up a bit. So anyhow, I was going over there late at night one night, in between the 2, and there was like a little step up, and every time I go there, it just looks like, because in the Vineville area, we have all those thick vines, and I'm just expecting a snake. There's creeks there and everything. We've seen several snakes, and I'm always scared at night, so I have a flashlight. And I was doing up that step to go to the other house, the little house, and had the shine. I've heard something, and I shined it. It was a big old possum. But those lights turn like like the dogs do and deer. And I thought, that's probably that mama, because ours wasn't that big. Coming to get me for she didn't know, she's probably the one that let it out. So anyhow, when this lady this happened like in the fall of that year, and Renee, who's with y'all's group, gave me this for Christmas, because they never know what to give to me, so they gave me this. And I thought that was so funny that she put that on there, because somebody always asks. And it's a great story to tell. So she was supposed to come tonight. So, I'm that kind of person that somebody gives me something, I try to do it when I see them. A lot of people don't care, like our daughter-in-law, when you'll give her something and she'll be like, oh, that's nice. And it'll be, the next time you go and we're babysitting their dogs, I'll find it like one step from the trash. At least have the dignity to put it out when I'm visiting your home. But no, I love this. So I worked tonight. Renee texted me on the way over here and said she had she got sick and was having to take antibiotics. So I thought, we don't want any sickness in our heaven, do we? Any other questions? That was a good question, by the way. I feel like Carol Burnett.
How much fresh fruit do you put in the peaches?
More than it probably says, like,
Yeah.
you know, it says like something per pound. I never know really what it is per pound, so I dump a good little bit.
Is there a taste to it? Or?
I never, you didn't taste it either.
No,
That was
no.
pure. It really doesn't. It's like a,
Powdery.
yeah, it's just like, yeah, so it's,
Ascorbic acid or something?
right, it's nothing that you wouldn't have in a diet drink or something. I mean, it's nothing that's gonna be any kind of.
And you just put your peaches in a bag and freeze them?
A freezer bag.
Wow, okay.
But I put sugar with them too. I wanna go ahead and have sugar down. That's what makes that nectar. Deborah's thinking at home, I secretly, what I did for this, I put in her little glass, made sure that bee was stopping up that bottle. And so she'll have a little surprise when she gets home. And I said, we really should have thought of that. Those ladies probably would love that at the thing tonight. I'm just saying, I was sipping that and eating that pie. We are eating pie though.
Right.
So you'll get to see what the taste is. Somebody's winning a pie. And some custard.
No.
And this.
Do you, do you
Yes.
sift your flour before you measure
I
or
get,
no?
when I use that, if I'm doing something like this, when I use that Swan's down, I
You
don't.
don't need to, do you?
And you know what I do if I don't want to have time to, you know, now you don't even have to use a sifter. You can just put it in a bowl and use like a whisk. You know, it's the same thing. But I never, with flour, fill it all the way up to the top. I always leave like an uneven edge because I think sometimes people like with pound cakes when they're dry, I think they put too much. Either using heavy flour or they put too much. I'd rather, you know, I'm the person that doesn't have a problem with that, what they call a sad streak on a pound
Yeah,
cake.
yeah.
That's my favorite part.
Oh, yes.
If you could take a thread and just cut that top part, you have that crunchy in that pudding, you don't
Yes.
have that dry part.
That's exactly right.
Is that not the way?
Yes.
So I
Best
don't mind
part.
that. I'll take mine out a little bit early because I don't want it to fall, but I don't want it dry as it goes. You tasted that and just think
And so what is it that causes the sad streak?
well, it's different things. Sometimes if you have over mixed it, like, you know, I read a thing, any mixing you do should be when you're creaming the butter and sugar.
Right.
And add the eggs.
That's-
After that, I'm very careful to just stir things in because if it's gonna get over and thick and heavy, it's gonna happen after you've had that fluffy stuff going.
Okay.
In fact, Southern Living recommended like, you know, it was like 3 or 4 minutes like between eggs and stuff. I mean, that almost should double and be like the color of your, you know, sweat. I can't tell what's showing, I have my glasses on, but sweat, you know, shirt, because you can literally see it change colors when it's been, you know, whipped the right amount. But I kind of, not really fold, but I just turn my mixer, I have one of those KitchenAid nice ones, just don't like just going blah, 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 blah to get that flour in there. Because if I always stir my extract in at the very end. I read something one time before that if you put that in ahead of time, that can aid in it being heavy. But I don't know if it doesn't quite get done or you've overbeat it or whatever, but it never has bothered me. But some people there was some lady in Sandusville that just had a fit. She was just gonna throw it out. I thought, give it to me. I don't want the rest of it. I just want the part that you don't want.
I asked you a question. You said that you kind of double the recipe.
1.5. For just one pie, I just did half a hand.
So how much flour would you put?
So it called for a third, I think. I put 2/3.
2/3, okay.
And then I think it was a cup of sugar. I put that was a cup of sugar, cup and a half. So 2 cups of that. And then with the eggs, it was only 2, and I put in a third one. I don't know how much almond I did, but it'll be fabulous. But you know, a 1/4 teaspoon of any flavor is not gonna do it. I mean, you know, in that Mildred, the lady I was talking about that did the glass, you know, the Crisco skating rinks, she would hold that up, and I thought, Mildred, some of that's staying in the spoon. Pour you a little bit. Live on the wild side, right? Life's too short not to, right? Any other questions? I love questions.
You ever done one of those gluten-free?
I did. I've done my cupcake, not one of these, but I've done my cupcake. This will probably do good. I did some cupcakes for a friend of mine who was gluten free. And you know, they weren't awful, but they were, you know.
That's good.
Yeah, there's.
But I mean, I think it's something like this, it wouldn't be bad at all, as long as you could have the peach juice and all there with it and put extra almond. I guess that matters for good. So that flour is heavy. When I was talking about heavy flour, that gluten-free flour is very heavy. It almost looks like a biscuit kind of texture.
So would you use less?
So yeah, definitely use less. Because it's like a packed kind of, what I call a packed. Y'all know how Bisquick is. It's just not soft or airy at all. Big difference. The opposite of Bisquick would be Swansdown. If you've never used Swansdown, it's in a box in the flour section.
Right.
Red, a lot of red.
With a swan.
It was a swan, and that's how you know. Look for red on the swan. But I would never make a layer cake or a pound cake that I didn't use Swansdown. Even though I love White Lily, it's lighter even to White Lily. But anytime, like when I had to go to Phoenix one time to speak, I had to take my White Lily and my stuff with me because all their flour looks like biscuit. And you know that's gonna be a tough biscuit if that flour's already tough where you look at it. You know, I can make some good biscuits. If we had a stove here, then we could make biscuits or a caramel cake. I'll make a great caramel cake where you burn the sugar, old timey. People try to tell me all the time, I found a new recipe and it uses brown sugar. Now what, you lost me with brown sugar because a true caramel cake, you have to start with white sugar and brown. I can taste that caramel, that brown sugar in it. And I love brown sugar. I just don't want it in my, caramel cake.
That was my grandmother, I got it from her, and I remember writing it on an envelope, and then like,
Or
I was
just
talking to her
like,
on the phone.
that's how every one of those recipes were on something. That made it even more special. I couldn't get rid of them even though I did the cookbook. But I thought I've made all that money on those cookbooks on just recipes that we thought everybody had. But back then you didn't have all that. We couldn't afford all those magazines and all. You didn't have all those shows about it. So the way you traded recipes was somebody would have something they brought from their family, like I did with that cake from Deborah's aunt, and you would start sharing it in your neighborhood. Another one that was in there that I still make to this day is terrible for you, but just a good comfort food. And sometimes my son requests it, even though he's 4 years old when he comes in. It was called, our next door neighbor brought it from wherever she moved from, but it was called sausage noodle bake. And it has egg noodles and a pound of like hot sausage and cream, of course, cream and chicken soup. It calls for one, I put two. Anytime something calls for one or cream and chicken, put two. If it calls for a cup of, back to Mildred, she made my sausage noodle bake when my daddy died and brought it to me in the house. And I said, Mildred, that's so sweet. I said, what is it? Because it said calls for 1 cup of, grated cheese. And she said, it's your sausage noodle. And I thought, that's how it looks if you follow the recipe? No, that cup is like on the bottom layer. After you spray that or greased it, I always put, any of my casseroles, sprinkle me some grated cheese on the bottom. That makes a wonderful crust. It's like a cheese straw. Then you do the rest of it, and then another 2 cups on top. You see totally orange cheese on top of mine, but it has pimento, a jar of pimentos, and I'm trying to think what else. But basically that, and if you put I do put a little canned milk in there because somebody told me with that. After you put an extra cream of chicken, you may as well cream it on up. But it bakes up. It's like a really good thing for brunch or breakfast. But it's good. I would eat some right now. It's good anytime. I'm having pie for supper. I don't know what y'all are having. I think I got y'all some chicken, right? Yeah. You give the sweet out. Have you ever done that? I gotta have that. I gotta give you something salty. Now I gotta have something sweet. Got to do salty.
my daddy always would give another piece of chicken.
That's gotta get the sweet out. Gotta get the sweet out. But I just don't trust people that don't like sweets and don't want to spend an eternity with them. One more thing I'll end on. This is a joke that I heard from a preacher's wife in an art class. I thought it was so funny. There was a fire and brimstone kind of preacher at a revival where he had stood up on the, pew for the last moments of his, thing, and he said, look to the left. It going on and on and on, kind of like y'all thinking, I wish he would shut up. On and on and on. And so people were like, why is he on that bench and everything? And she said, look to the left. Do you see that person? And they did. And they said, look to your right. You see that person? You could be spending an eternity with these people. And somebody said, we already have. I love coming to see y'all. I want y'all to enjoy the pie. And we had a peachy time, didn't we? I didn't go too over. See, we had them with that pie. They're not going to leave without that pie.
Oh, no, nobody. All right.
Do you wanna draw?
I'm always nervous, I will.
I didn't take a lot of minutes.
Okay, I'm gonna let you read though, I think I was the one that read the right thing.
That's right. Lawn flower.
What is it with reading? The read went to you. Well, are you his wife?
Yes.
You may have to hold, I was hoping you all were gonna come as a couple, somebody's going to hold it in somebody's lap. So whoever drives the best, let the other one hold it on.
He's already told me I can't have it. We'll see about that.
Ah.
Oh, yeah. I see game is on.
Well, just